In a short stretch of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 22. Today we're talking with Steve Norcia. We're talking about sales. You got to close the deal. Always be closing. Retest.
Amazing. Hey, sir. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
We made it another week. Look at this. We're still alive.
Should have been there. Should have been there.
Should have been there.
How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. You know, I'm suffering from allergies today, so I may be sniffling away here.
I've heard that seems to be countrywide. I've heard people in California, here in Colorado, now on the East Coast. So
it's awful. The pollen. My entire backyard is just green.
Oh yeah,
pollen. It's crazy.
That's
anyway.
Anyway,
life is good, and it's good to. You know, Steve Norcia, my goodness, he joined us when he had left. I think it was DDB or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, one of the
big ad agencies. So we're like, oh God, another big ad agency guy. What's he gonna do?
Well, I know. He was an adult. You know, he brought an adult supervision.
Exactly. This should be good. This should be good.
Yeah, this should be good. So before we get going, go to youshoulda.com if you want to see past episodes. Leave comments here if you are in and about. Retest is always looking at those. And of course, as always, please subscribe. Go to YouTube, subscribe. We need to be influencers. We need subscribers. So that's about it on that front. With that, let's bring in the man of the hour, Steve Norcia.
Amazing. Hello.
How are you?
Oh, you know, we're ducking and diving, bobbing and weaving, you know.
You guys are looking younger every day.
I know, right? It's all glue. It's all, you know.
Yeah. It's to get out of bed quickly, so you've got a thing to do. Look, so yeah.
I think you've gotten a little bit of a haircut since some of the other episodes I've seen you in, Retest. I mean, I've noticed that.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, for the last year, my wife has been my barber, so you know you get what you get, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I was lucky. We finally had some of the barbershops open here in Montclair, so found one and said, right, chop it all off. So they did.
I did a year without a haircut, and I went full COVID mullet, and then I gave myself a haircut. And this is
not too bad.
It's not bad, you know.
We don't want to see the back, though.
No, well, I think it's grown in enough now that the patches are all covered up.
Some of these young people, you know, they let the beard go and the hair grow, and then they do something like this, and they're all ready to go.
That's right, exactly.
And they look good.
Exactly. My oldest son has got a beard down to here and hair down to his, shoulders, and it's like wow, and then just and it's fine.
Yeah. All good. Last time I saw him was probably 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So he's a big guy now.
He certainly is. Yes, that's right. I used to bring him to the office at agency.
Right.
That's
and I've been to your house too.
Yes.
And you've been to mine.
And I've been to yours.
No longer there, but yeah.
We had a great evening. We should relive that. Let's talk about that as we keep going here. That was really good. Yeah. I think we did a nice. Steve has hosted a bunch of us, and then we had a glass of whiskey, and we were chatting away for about an hour, weren't we?
And you were our speaker.
Oh, yes, that's right.
You talked about the future of technology. It was a fabulous talk, too.
I'd forgotten about that.
Well, he doesn't know anything about the future of technology, right?
Well,
it's all a ruse. He's been faking it since I met him.
Love it. I love it.
I think with the accent, it does make it credible. So.
Well, that's the thing, you see. We always sound intelligent.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a British trait.
Yeah.
We're always criminals in movies. We're always the bad guy.
Well, let's dive in here, Steve. Talk to us about how everything started for you. Where were you before? We met you at Agencycom, but talk to us about what
you had a great career in advertising, I think.
Yeah, and sort of how did you discover the internet and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I was in the advertising business for a very long time, and I was EVP of Doyle Dane Bernbach, which is a big Omnicom advertising agency in New York. And I was the managing director.
Needham, or it was just the
No,
one that
it
got
was
back
Needham
originally?
before, but then it
Before
became
the Needham.
just
That's
DDB.
right. Yes.
And then so I was the managing director of the New York office, but I was 59, and the advertising business has a tendency to sort of move you out. So I tried to anticipate that a little bit. And I asked Omnicom if I could go to one of these little places where the internet was being started and they were spending a lot of money on it. And I said, why not? If I could learn something, it might be a good thing, because I certainly wasn't able to retire financially. So they said, okay, well, you can go down. And I asked them about organic and agency.com. And they said, go talk to them. And I said, can you set me up? Yeah, we'll set you up. So I went to organic, and I interviewed both places, but I went to organic, and they wanted me to be the head of strategy. Now I thought that was a big jump from somebody who had no internet experience.
But Steve, those were the days that we made things up. It didn't matter that you knew anything about it.
I introduced Diet Coke and Miller Lite and the IBM ThinkPad, and I had some time with global accounts and advertising accounts, and I had some technical experience, but all in hardware, digital equipment and Lexmark and IBM, and I got close with Alta Vista. I helped them launch the first search engine.
Wow. That's pretty close. That's in the neighborhood.
And Lexmark and those kind of things. But I knew nothing about software. I knew nothing about websites. I really knew very little about the internet. But I was intrigued, and I love the guys at Agency.com. I interviewed there. I thought it was terrific. I thought maybe BizDev was a place for me anyway, because I was a head of new business a couple of times in my career for McCann Erickson, a couple other places. I knew how to do that. So I said to myself, maybe I could, they could look the other way and I could get in there. So anyway, you accepted me, and there I was. And I joined in September 2000.
Wow.
And I left sometime after 9/11, January of 2002. But I jumped at the chance. I took a chance, and I said to myself, well, it was great. It was a good decision. I was in the front lean and rest, to say that, the way the Army says it. I was in a push-up position most of the time, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. But I had a lot of good help, because I had, I was the oldest person in the entire company, for one thing.
Yeah, at 59, you would have been up there.
I was up there.
For some reason, I never thought you were 59. I don't know. I guess we were kids, and so anything over 30 was old, right?
Well, I do remember, Steve. You knew how to wear a suit, actually.
Oh yeah.
Which the rest of us had never quite. I still don't quite have it worked out.
I probably came in inappropriately dressed, maybe for a client meeting with a suit on or something. But that was what I did, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was there basically less than 2 years, and I remember getting a tiny little office, but I didn't know why I had an office, by the way. I think it was because they thought I was going to have some conversations with prospects or something, and I needed privacy. But it wasn't a month before that office went away, and of course we went to Cubes. And it was a little bit of an adjustment for me, because the office at DDB was sort of like a volleyball court, so I was really kind of cramped in there, but it worked out fine. I loved the Cube thing because it kept me young. I had Chris Needham next to me, and it was terrific. It was just wonderful. I thought it was the most exciting thing ever, and had a great team. Thank God for Laura Gregor.
Laura, that's right.
Not only was she the best biz dev person, could she sell, but she also was my personal, get it together person. Steve, no, this is how it works. And I see her from time to time. We have lunch in New York or something. I think she's just terrific. And she was my in-house consultant, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was great fun. And thanks to Retest and Thor and, a whole bunch of people who guided me through the whole thing, I started to learn something, which was good.
Yeah. What was the biggest thing you learned? What were your big insights when you came from a couple of decades in the advertising biz to a place
Especially
called
big agency. I mean, you
Yeah.
worked at one of the biggest, right? You worked at McCann. That was huge.
I
DDB
ran
was
McCann, New
huge.
York,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
I did. I ran a couple of big agencies in New York, and then I went to a smaller place called Earl Palmer Brown for a while, and I ran the Northeast, which was Washington, Connecticut, and New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then DDB got digital equipment, and because I ran the IBM business worldwide for quite some time at McCann, and I won that business in a business pitch.
Yeah.
DDB came after me, and I was surprised, but I said, yes, I'll come. I was pretty old then, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
So you're at DDB, and you run these big agencies, and I'm sure you saw some amazing changes in the big agency world as well.
Absolutely.
And then you come and hang out with the children over at Romper Room, as you used to call us, in Agency.com. To Carl's point, how was it?
Well, it was a big surprise. I mean, we had a division at DDB, and we actually even
Tribal.
had
That's right. Tribal.
Oh, yeah.
Tribal, yeah. And we also had a division at McCann. But I helped those guys because I had two technical accounts, whether it be IBM at McCann or digital equipment at DDB. So there was a lot of activity between the two, but we were separate. I was trying to get the campaign out and get the people over in Europe happy. I was always on the road somewhere. And but I knew the guys, and I respected everything they did, and I was learning. But that's probably where I got the stimulus to say, I said, geez, this would be really fun, And it was.
What was the biggest difference? What was the biggest difference, culturally or, from the big agency to Agency.com? What struck you about it?
Well, one of the things that I believe was the biggest issue was the fact that everybody was young at the Agency.com kind of company. And later, when I had my own consulting company, I actually was consulting with McGarry Bowen. McGarry Bowen had a digital division, but the difference between where the advertising division was and the digital division was in those days was unbelievable, because the digital division was the division. Whereas in the earlier days, they were, nobody understood them. There were a lot of young people who, didn't dress up too well. And, sometimes when they had a meeting or something. So when I got to Agency.com, that sort of kept going until I ran into some really smart people who I never really had spent time in that area. Retest and yourself and Chan and all of the people that were at agency at the time. It was pretty spectacular, and I loved it. I got on that train. I kept my little laptop with me the whole time, trying to learn. You do end up passing in review a little when you're an agency guy. That is, you watch things happen, and if you're at a higher level, you don't do things.
Right.
And when I got into my own consulting company, let me tell you what, if it wasn't for Agency.com, I wouldn't have had much of a consulting company. It was really
you sort of learned the hands-on thing because we were making it up, we had to figure it out. What was the difference in pitches when from pitching traditional to pitching digital? Do you remember it? What were the bigger differences in what we were pitching?
The audience was didn't understand as much about what we were selling at Agency.com as they did in the advertising business. And it was kind of interesting that the team, in a lot of ways, just sort of figured everybody understood everything at Agency.com. And they, as a matter of fact, I think I taught a few presentation classes and how to organize some things. But that didn't make it any less potent. I mean, those meetings were great, and they were very good. People were really smart, and for example, the way we presented, mostly PowerPoint, but the way we presented and the way we threw screens up there I always said, guys, and maybe this was because it was me. I said, let's slow down on the screens. Let's make them a little bigger. Let's concentrate on pieces of them because they flash by and there's so much on there. A lot of people just don't get it.
Huh.
So we made some interesting changes like that and made it, a little bit more comprehensible and
slowed it down.
Slowed it down a little bit
for the older folk.
But there were some really wonderful people at Agency.com. Smart, bright, exciting.
I remember one of the pitches was the BT one, British Telecom came. Remember that one? The cell phone. They were launching a cell service, and you and I think it was Jill Updegraff as well.
Jill, I was trying to think of her name yesterday.
That you were leading it. I vividly remember the day before you had us all in the conference room. Christine Fitz, myself, Jill, a bunch of people, and you were coaching each one of us, right? Do this, say this, right? And when you stand up and do something, do it this way. And we kept looking at you like, who is this guy? What's he doing here? But it was perfect because those Brits came in. And we did slow it down. And they did sort of say, hey, wait a minute, tell us more about that. And you should see Steve sitting in the corner just smiling away. Like, see, I told you, just slow it down a bit.
The director.
But it was tough for us a little bit because we were so used to flying. We were so used to just, thinking everybody got what we said and what we did. And you were spot on. And that's sometimes we think people know what we're talking about, but they actually did not have a clue what we were saying.
Well, as you know, clients are always thought to be so smart, but the truth of the matter is that they're, after you get to know clients a lot, the agency people are usually the smart ones.
Yeah.
You remember that pitch we did in Korea?
Oh gosh, Samsung.
So Samsung.
That's right.
Bruce Rebhan, Chris Needham, Retest, and me. Rebhan strategy, Needham creative, Retest technology, and me BizDev. We fly to Seoul, Korea, and make a pitch. Now, I don't think we won that, did we? But we had a great time, and we built a real relationship between the four of us. I mean, Chris Needham was in Australia with one of my sons, for God's sake. So, I mean, this is a wonderful thing that's happened over the years, but it's true of Agency.com. Everybody connects again. But here we were in this odd conference room that sort of had it looked like there was rows of tables and a couple of heavy set Koreans in the front who sort of nodded and went like this with their jowls. And here we were pitching our hearts out and in a very unusual setting. And in that whole building, they had all these Samsung products, which were like air conditioners that stood in the corner by themselves and could cool a room. In those days, that was a big deal.
Big deal, exactly. But the best thing, I think, if I remember correctly, they had. So we were presenting, but they had a translator translating our presentation live, real time.
Right.
It was unnerving. Steve would stand up and say something, and then he'd have to stop midway because the translator was translating. And then we start again, and it was just like, what is going on here? This is the Twilight Zone. It was hilarious.
And as I recall it, I was the only person who had been to Seoul.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I had been there for IBM and Coca-Cola, and, for business and stuff. And I love Seoul. It's a beautiful city. But that was an unusual thing. That Samsung thing was very unusual because, first of all, it was technical. And then they had all these guys lined up at these tables. I mean, there's a lot of people in this meeting.
Yeah, there has to be at least 40 people that were sat in front of us. And I remember as we left, Needham said, I think that went well. And Steve just burst out laughing. We come back and Chan goes, how did it go? We said, you should have gone to Korea, not us.
I do remember that when we got in BizDev Professionals, and when we were growing really quickly,
I think that was Kevin Rowe, right? He kept insisting we needed to get people in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what ended up happening was that question of how do you think it went? I remember, we'd be in a pitch and we would do something and it was a train wreck, and it was clear that we had just smacked it into a wall. And we'd get out and someone would ask that question, how do you think it would go? And like the BizDev people were always like, I think it went awesome. And I was like, no, it didn't go awesome. We didn't get it. That was the worst thing we've ever done. It was amazing. Like the optimism of BizDev, like everything went great. No, it didn't.
But it was really interesting, Steve. You say that you were learning. I remember sitting with Laura Gregor because I think she had experience with selling digital solutions, but from a technology perspective. I think she was like selling tech services or something, right? And I remember my first conversation with her where she came in with a potential client and she goes, how do we do it? This is the pricing I wanted. I'm like, Laura, it doesn't work that way. And she just looked at me. What do you mean? I said, well, we don't do that, this, and this, but we do this. What? I thought we did all this. I'm like, no, we don't do any of this stuff.
Well, one of the big things that happened, of course, while I was there was 9/11.
Yeah.
And, take a sad moment and talk about that for a minute because Retest and I were there together, and
in the conference room, I think somebody had called a meeting, right?
Yes, there was a meeting, and we came outside and went to the receptionist. It was about 9:00.
Yeah,
and there was a very tall young fella there, and said, "A plane just ran into the Trade Center," and I immediately thought, "Oh, some stupid Yahoo young pilot just put a Piper Cub into the side of the building."
Right.
Except it wasn't a Piper Cub, as we know. And by the time we had talked to this receptionist for just a short time, the second plane went in. And by the way, by 10:30, the buildings had collapsed, which we saw because Retest, an advertising agency, every place has a TV monitor, every room almost. We didn't have that many TV monitors. Retest set them all up in the conference rooms, and he was somewhere else, but I ended up running into him in one of these conference rooms while we watched the towers go down. And it was unbelievable. And we had smoke and dust and crap that came up through one of the windows that was open. And the stuff was coming in, and we had to push everything down. How many blocks away were we, do you think?
Six blocks away.
Yeah, about 6 blocks away.
Yeah.
But while we were watching this whole thing happen, and Retest had set it up, and actually he was deferred to a lot, and so was I because I was just old. Somehow we didn't have a lot of management people around for that day.
We didn't.
So Retest and I ended up doing a lot of the calming down kind of thing. Yeah. But the part that was most interesting was we never looked outside the window. I don't remember anybody looking outside the window, and I think that probably was just we were in the state of shock.
Yeah,
because I knew there were
the TVs.
Yeah, there were some people up on we had
the cafeteria.
Floor, the cafeteria. Yeah. There were some people up there that saw
the second plane. Yeah, they saw the second plane.
So, that day was something. I was late that day, so I missed it all. I got a call from my assistant who said, you should turn on the TV. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, just turn on the TV. And then it was just, I was in shock for,
That I think was the best thing for that day was we were lucky that our teams never came in on time.
Yeah.
They were always late.
It's true.
We used to complain all the time, where is everybody? Because we'd come in at 8:30, 9, right? And that was the first time we all said, thank God we have people who don't show up on time, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't come in. And, if they had, can you imagine if they were coming as commuting and walking through? Because a lot of the people were coming out the subways and walking to the office, right? And that's exactly when things were happening. So
we had a lot of clients in those buildings. I mean, which was the one that we had?
Well, we had Goldman. We had...
it was a software company. Anyway,
I've forgotten the name, but we had clients.
We could have been in there meeting,
I
had a lot. I had a couple of relatives in there, but in addition to that, some people,
we were stuck, and I think we were stuck there till 2:00 in the afternoon because the National Guard arrived and they shut everybody down. Nobody could leave.
Yeah, we were.
And so those of us that were left in the building, we had to stay there. I think Esther was with us, if I remember correctly. And we had to stay until 2:30. And then as we started to leave, people started to sort of disperse. Some people started walking towards the Brooklyn Bridge. A core group of us started walking uptown towards Chinatown, and we ended up in a restaurant somewhere. I can't remember.
But it was. You remember that it was New York at its finest, though, because
It was.
they took furniture and put it in the street so people could rest. Yeah. I saw a shoe store where they were taking sneakers out and giving them to women with high heels who were walking. Water bottles.
Yeah, people were handing out water to everybody. Yeah,
they were just terrific. And I had the pleasure of walking from the agency once we got clearance to go downstairs. And of course, we went outside and it was dust and rubble and pandemonium everywhere, and dark.
Yeah.
And I walked up with Jim Imbriaco.
No way.
Our counsel, our general counsel.
Yeah.
And Jim and I every year send an email to each other. What's going on, buddy? How's it going? Remember that day?
Wow.
It was also my wife's birthday.
Oh,
and
my
for some
God.
reason, I couldn't get a hold of her with the telephone and this and the other. And cell phone reception on the way up was too screwed up and everything else. But it was interesting because we walked up and then we got to the Empire State Building. And Jim was going to Jersey, right? I'm going to Westchester. So I said, Jim, you don't want to walk down 39th Street, whatever street it is because the Empire State Building is probably a target, right? I mean, they could hit that next. So he went around, but he got to New Jersey, and I went on the train, and we were talking about me wearing a suit. I had changed my outfit in those days to black. Black shirt, black pants.
That's
black
right.
socks,
I remember that. That's right.
I was trying
you were trying to be the cool hip. Yeah.
I got on the train and I was covered with dust and rubble.
Wow.
And I had a black outfit on, and the trains were packed, but nobody looked like me because most of the people were from Midtown.
Right.
Some of them didn't even know what was going on. It was amazing that they hadn't watched the television. They were working on trying to sell a mutual fund or something. They were doing their jobs, and they just didn't know what was going on. So it was wow.
I remember using, because we couldn't do cell phones, I remember spending most of the afternoon and evening on AOL IM getting people to check in.
Mm-hmm.
And Chan and Kyle were, all over it. They were like, okay, who are we missing? I think Kyle, you or Chan had the list of all the New York employees.
Yeah, we were checking everyone off.
Yeah, we were checking them off.
And we were just like, please don't be a blank check mark.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember the last one to check in was Jill Updegraff. She had us so worried. We couldn't get a hold of her for 2 hours. Everybody else, checked in on AOL on instant message, but Jill, I don't know what happened, but she was the one who we were all like trying to hunt her down, like, does anybody know, has anybody seen her?
Wow.
And
but everybody was okay. I remember everybody was okay.
A couple of people lost some folks, and a fair amount of people saw things and were obviously upset. The other thing I remember, back to the New York being a remarkable place, I forget, Retest, you may remember the agency that took us in for 2 weeks.
Fleischman.
It was Fleischman Hilliard. Like we didn't have a place to stay, and instantly they said, we've got extra room, come here. And we cobbled together whatever machines we had, took them to Fleischman Hilliard, and basically set up temporary agency.com until we could get back into those offices. And that was a really remarkable thing too, because it was like we couldn't get everyone there, but we had a core group of people that kept the client relationships going, whatever projects needed to be going, and we didn't miss a beat, which was astounding.
Yeah, it was their office on 42nd Street. Remember?
Exactly.
Next to the
PR company, right?
PR agency. I think Omnicom owned them.
How long was that after we closed down Exchange Place? How long was it before Fleischman Hilliard gave you a couple of weeks? Or
a couple of weeks. Yeah, within the 2 weeks we were in at 42nd Street, I think, right?
Well, I think we started within a couple of days. And it was, I think we were we weren't allowed back into 20 Exchange for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we worked in that
We
temporary.
were all at home or whatever,
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to figure out
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was going to happen next. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I never made it to Fleischman Hilliard. And the reason why I didn't is because our oldest son was in Sri Lanka, and he was in Sri Lanka for doing a semester abroad. And his 21st birthday is October 7th. And we were going to go to Sri Lanka and have a party for his birthday.
Wow.
I think we could have, we rented a hotel or something for about $180. I mean, it's very inexpensive there. But anyway, we were very excited about seeing our son. But now, the Muslim country, 9/11, we got 2 other kids. We decided this is really a bad idea to fly to this situation. So he had the party by himself. It was fine. Everything went well. And this is the son, Ritesh. So, Matt. So I very, very morose and maudlin go for a long bike ride. I think it maybe been 30, 40 miles. And I was coming back into my town of Rye. And as I come into town, somebody opens the door into my wrist. And out I go, hospital, the whole thing. And
I remember this.
had to be completely restructured. So I never made it to Fleischman Hilliard. I went on temporary disability.
Wow.
And then gradually retired. My last day was 9/11 in Agencycom.
Oh my gosh. I don't
Even though
that.
my last day of work was January 2002, because stringing along with this thing, 2 operations and everything else.
Wow.
And, I was at home. So I never really got to Fleischman Hilliard, and I never really saw anybody other than socially in the company.
Oh, that's remarkable.
And it's
that's
kind of a sad thing for me.
That.
It was a sad thing because I and I even went down to the office there whenever it was safe to do it, but of course nobody was there. It was closed. It was we
were closed for a while because there was asbestos abatement, and there was a bunch of things that had to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch up gears again. While you were still active there, what are the pitches you remember? What are are there any wins that you remember of, like, that were sort of big deal wins or big deal pitches? I mean, you come from the big agency thing, so it might not have been as novel to you, but what do you remember from wins or pitches from those days?
Well, I thought it would. I had a couple of things that I thought about pitches, but particular pitches maybe Retest can help me with better. But one of the things we tried to do is find a handle for what we were doing. I mean, we charge $1 million for a website. I mean, you have to do something for that, and we did. I mean,
what do you get for $1 million?
But so we came up with this thing called be careful, don't get Amazoned. And the thing was that every company was terribly frightened as they built their vocabulary that Amazon had taken the book business out.
It obliterated
the way digital took out photography. But I mean, this was a real thing. This was a website thing that took out all the bookstores in America in one swell. They didn't even bring you everything they bring you now. I mean, we don't do anything other than just get the stuff from the front door. They're really unbelievable. And another story about this whole thing is Jeff Bezos's brother, Mark, used to work for me on digital equipment at DDB.
No way.
Yeah, so he only has one brother, his little brother, and Jeff Bezos. And as a matter of fact, I consulted with that company, and it was called Bezos Nathanson, which is kind of interesting. That's another story. But so out Amazon was a terrific tool because no matter who the company was, they'd stop and they would consider that comment, and then they would let us talk more, and sell them a little bit more.
That's right.
The other thing is, I think I was telling Kyle this. Kyle led a team of us, and I think it was Merck. It might have been J&J. It might even have been a walk over to Goldman Sachs. But I mean, those are some of the pitches we made. But the thing that happened with one of these things was we had this meeting, and we said that we can. You have no idea what we can do. I mean, we can do this and we can do that. We were going to come in and teach them the vocabulary, tell them how easy it was with us, to get the internet going. You get a nice website for $9.99, and and
I wouldn't get one free.
and so we suddenly realized that some of these big companies were getting it. They were kind of like figuring it out. And I remember this one meeting that we were in where they said, yeah, we have 17 internal people working on this.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, really? Or somebody said, oh, really? And what are they doing? They start to talk. And we said, holy shit, these guys know, Scott, pardon me. These guys really know something that
was Goldman.
We were the only ones who knew it.
Yeah, that was Goldman. I remember this. It was Goldman. Yeah.
Beginning of time where these guys started to focus on it. They didn't want to be Amazon, and they were really getting it, and we had to do something for that money, so we had to figure out a way to be a little bit smarter, a little bit quicker. Probably gave us a good little boost. It
did. That was the Goldman pitch. I remember very well because Julie came down from Chicago.
Julie Roth.
Julie Roth.
Oh, right.
Julie came down for it. It was you, me, Steve. It was you, me, Ben Jones, Julie, Chris Needham. There's a bunch of us because it was huge. It was huge. But I remember, the client saying, "Yeah, we got all these people. We got these guys building the back end." We were like, "What?" They said, "Yeah. We've got all this going," and that's when we knew that world is starting to change here. People are starting to figure this out, and we've got to do some more things than what we just do. And I mean, part of the sell there, it was the brilliance of Ben Jones more than anybody else. Ben, they loved Ben, and he came up with some really, really interesting ways that Goldman could engage with their customers, which is good. But imagine 2000.
Yeah.
We built a site and built the infrastructure where you could do trading yourself. That was never unheard of before. That you could get your statement online. You don't have to call an advisor to say how much money do I have in my 401k or whatever it was. You could do foreign exchange trading. It was like blowing people away stuff. We had to do stuff for that Goldman deal, just like we did for Sirius Satellite Radio.
Yeah.
Where we built the player and the credit card and the, all of those things. 1999, 2000. I remember, the Jamie Corral was the project manager on it. She's like, "We're doing what? We do that?" I'm like, "Well, we'll figure it out."
I think it was 99. My pitch that was similar to the Goldman one, where it was like, "Oh, we're playing a different game now," was the Nike pitch, where we went out there just absolutely convinced that we were going to change the game, and we pitched them all these ideas, and their response was essentially, "Yeah, that's cute. We tried that 2 years ago. Here's the 6 reasons it doesn't work." We're like, "Oh." What are you going to do?
But I think that the one that I think I'd completely forgotten that career trip, Steve. So thanks for reminding me. But the one vivid one for me is exactly the one was the British Telecom one.
Yeah.
That was really, really good. You led that whole thing. I remember at one point we were working late. It's 7 or 8 o'clock, and it was just me and Christine Fitz in the conference room. If you remember that corner room that we had, as we walked in, and Steve walks in, "What are you guys doing?" We're like, "Well, we're still working on the presentation." No. Stop. It's tomorrow. Stop. We're like, "Oh, okay."
Oh my God.
It
was really good.
I think it probably saved me a few years of Alzheimer's or something, because I was just really trying to absorb as much as I could, and then when I did leave, I had a year of rehabilitation, and I thought about what I was going to do next, and I started this little consulting firm called Topsail Group, and we did 3 things. We did branding, internal and external. Nobody knew what internal was.
Right.
Just branding to your employees, not a big deal, but it was a kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
And then we did building high performance teams, which there was some good information on, and also there was a good thing that a lot of companies didn't have everybody working as a team, and I learned that at Agencycom as well. And then finally, I helped with some, marketing strategy and communications. So those three things sort of started the business. And I did, we did pretty well. We had some great clients. We had, Remy Martin and Remy
Any free stuff?
Pfizer, Castle Brand, Stolt Nielsen, the shipping company, Neopost,
Wow.
number of agencies, Gary Bowen, Arnold Advertising, and Avenue A Razorfish. Now,
oh my gosh.
If I went to agency.com, I wouldn't even gotten in the door. They would say, "What are you doing? You're old man. Go away." But I knew enough to get a consulting thing for a year with Avenue A Agency
or Razorfish. Yeah. Wow. What did you do for them? Do you remember what you did for them?
Pardon?
Do you remember what you did for them?
Yeah, we helped out. They had some team issues, and they also had some issues about how they were presenting themselves and getting new business. So we sort of consulted on communication strategy and teams, and then there was the issue about sometimes this thing falls out into executive coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to be a very good business for us. So sometimes there was an executive that needed, like Jim Warner ran the place, and he kind of wanted some help here and there, and so it was kind of interesting. But we had it for about a year, and it was very familiar territory because they were a few years later
they got acquired, right? Yeah, because I think it was Scott Howe in Seattle who was the sort of the general manager out there. I think he went on to Epsilon or something like that, or Axiom or one of those companies. But they were a very digital shop, and so. But you know what? They were like iTraffic. I think it was formerly it was called Eyeballs. Before Avenue A bought them. Remember Eyeballs?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well,
so
the
Avenue A bought Eyeballs to be because Avenue A was huge in the West Coast. It was actually funded by some of the same crew that funded, Amazon and a couple of others. And so the West Coast, they were big in Seattle. They were growing like wildfire, and they wanted to come to New York. And so they bought this little company called Eyeballs and turned it into Avenue A New York. And all they did, I mean, their model was very much CPM. They would come in, not even know what are you trying to do, is how much do you pay CPM? And if I can lower it for you.
Wow.
Oh, okay. We pay $20. Okay, we'll give it to you for 12. So that was a deal.
Speaking of eye traffic, how about Babs Rangaya? What a career he's had, huh?
Right. Scott Heiferman, and Babs, Babs. We should get Babs on here.
The reason why I mentioned it is because every once in a while I connect with him, and of course he was at IBM for a while, and but he's now I think he's in CBS.
He's at CBS,
he's in the BBS somewhere. But right. I follow him on Facebook, and he's he's always doing something fun.
It's amazing.
Wow, in those days, I think. Tell us a little bit about the party at your house, because I don't remember that either. I'm getting old.
Well, I think the idea was to come to Rye and have a nice dinner and have fun and have our people there. I don't think we had any clients. But we had done it a lot with advertising people. We had once we did our annual meeting with Coca-Cola from around the world at McCann Erickson. We'd bring all the executives, the Coca-Cola executives, plus the key guys from the agency, and we'd have a dinner at our house. And we did that once. My wife is a saint, by the way. We did that once when we had a blackout.
Oh.
And not everybody came, but enough people came that we still had to have the party. So she managed quickly with getting these stoves that they put in. When you do a television shoot or something, they have all these food stoves.
Oh, right, yeah.
Had those in the garage, and she got, I think, over 150 candles and. We went outside and had cigars, and it all went fine. But and some of the people thought it was the best part. These people were from all over the world, Argentina, Europe. It was a good party, but she was a one because I didn't know what to expect. I drive, from Manhattan. I come home and I say, "Oh my God, I wonder how this is going to go." And we bought a piano. We still have the piano, and we had one of the account guys, account supervisor in the agency, was a piano player, so he played the piano, and we had this brand new piano in the blackout. Anyway, but it was a wonderful time we had because Retest, as I say, Retest made a wonderful speech, and we had good food, and we all sort of had a lot of camaraderie. And you know what? I don't even know if we have pictures of that.
Huh.
I don't think
they're
so.
somewhere in my life, my cellar or something. Those,
Yeah, if you find it, let me know to remind me that I was there, because I don't remember any of it.
I remember you standing there in our family room making this talk, and you were terrific. I mean, it was great. I think we might have had something. A working meeting at the yacht club and a picnic during the daytime.
Yeah, mate, that's
not
starting
sure,
to ring a bell a bit. Yeah.
Anyway,
but it was a team building thing. I remember you saying, we need to bring people together. We were growing still very fast. People didn't know each other, so let's put people together to do that. That much I do remember, but I don't remember doing it at your house. That was
wow, that's cool.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Are there any lessons you sort of took from the agency.com days, or anything that you did there that you carried forward, when you went under your own on the consulting side?
Yeah, lots of things. Most of it relates, as I remember it now, is the tremendous energy around technology. And, now my life is full of technology. As my son-in-law is a CIO, my daughter works for IBM as a spec. My son's a COO of a startup. My other son is a digital nomad in Costa Rica, working for a digital agency in Canada. So everything is technology. And I was sort of thinking I was okay, IBM, this, that. I didn't know anything about technology until I met you guys. And then, so now, at my age, I mean, I can still run my computer pretty well. I don't have this, this vacuous look on my face when somebody mentions something like, my son-in-law and I wired the whole house together, that kind of thing. So, but I wouldn't have ever even imagined that. So that's one thing that I consider as a gift. And then the relationships with everybody. Yeah. I mean, in the end, it's all about people. 90% of everything is about people. And I'm amazed at the relationships. And I think about all of the people that Brian Mondry, if you remember him, he came from McCann or DDB or something.
He did. That's right. One of the big agencies.
At agency when I got there. And Brian had come in, and I'd say, Brian, I'm having trouble with this PowerPoint. What do I do? So it was good. I mean, it was fun. It was a lot.
The people thing is like, that's a universal thing in these shows, is just, the relationships formed back then are, still carrying on.
Yeah. And, Thor does this swim and everything else. And we've been in our house in Connecticut for 17 years. Thor and his wife have been here for dinner. I mean, it's like he's in Rhode Island, it's like, it's kind of nice to see him too.
Swing down. Yeah,
it is. I think, even with us being scattered all over the place, in the theme that's come through, and I think it was Troy? Troy was like, Mark Seaboard, I think, when we had Troy and Mark on, they were like, you got to organize another reunion, we've got to get together again. And it was, I never thought about this until that reunion, when it was mentioned, when I think it was Jackson who mentioned it on the last one we did. He said at that reunion, nobody had their phones out.
Yeah.
People were talking to each other, catching up with each other, hugging each other. There was conversations going on. There weren't people standing in a corner with their phone. Nobody was, doing any of that. It was just pure sort of, hey, missed you. Let's catch up. Let's have a, what's going on. And I didn't think about that until Jackson mentioned it, that it was that. There was a culture that we'd built that was just incredible, I think.
Yeah. And it's an instant thing. I feel like every time I see someone from those days, it's like there's this instant connection. It's just like,
It's a wonderful thing you did, Kyle. I got to tell you. I'm serious. I mean, it's not ordinary for sure, and very, very, very unusual that you had built so many things, not only the relationships between the people, but good commerce too, that basically before anybody else thought about it.
Yeah, it was that, that lightning in the bottle of right team, right place, right time in history. I mean, this was, if it wasn't New York, in that sort of 6-month window, it wouldn't have been the same. So,
and I think the biggest thing, Steve, that you mentioned, and I think you mentioned that when you first joined, was the people were so smart, and it was that curiosity that the culture was that, well, we'll just figure it out, right? There was no, we can't do that, or all of that. I work in a big agency now. While I don't do agency work, I do interact with the folks in the agency sometimes, and it's still amazing to me that they're thinking and doing things. I was like, yeah, we did that in 1998. We did that in 1999, and they're like, what? It is fascinating. We did some pioneering stuff that we take it for granted, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it was curiosity. It was also just that thing that, the client would say, well, I want to do this. And you'd see 3 people in the room look at each other with panic in their eyes. And then you just go, yeah, we can do that. And then you'd walk out and they'd be like, what the hell are you telling them?
Well, I remember in some of those origination meetings, we'd get the pitch and then they'd give us an assignment to do something. And, and then we were in there, and sometimes you'd be in there, Kyle or, Retest would always be there, but sometimes Chan would be in there and everything else. And I was sitting back and I was watching you guys on the whiteboard. I was saying to myself, I already know all this shit. Anyway, it was a fun time. I'll tell you, it was terrific, and it's a big part of my life for a year and 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah. And it is amazing that in that year and 2 months, what you learned and the kinds of things we did, you carried on, in your consulting, and probably to this day, right?
Those pieces of knowledge, those concepts, and was able to talk to a client about their websites and their, I knew enough to help them. And I have a pretty old website, but I got a website.
I was going to mention that. I was going to say to Kyle, we may not want to mention the website. Don't talk about the website. Yeah, but now that you've mentioned and opened the door, we do have some
hyperlinks and flash
exactly. Maybe have a revolving E on it, that sort of stuff. Maybe make the sail move.
Yeah,
there you go.
Like
make sail, right? And so, what are you up to now, Steve? What's going on now? What are you doing? Well, you moved, right? You don't live in the house that we had the party, and you moved, right?
Yeah, I moved to Old Saybrook, Connecticut, which is midway between Boston and New York, on the Connecticut River. We have a beautiful setting. We sort of live in the woodsy area, but we got the river down below us. And so our daughter and our husband live with us because they left Brooklyn, but that won't last forever. And Martha and I are just having a great time. She loves bridge and canasta. We take a 5-mile walk every day. I play tennis. I have a Peloton that I'm on all the time because
look at you, connected bike and everything.
And so now I'm back to tennis because of the weather, the COVID thing. You get that ball as a fomite. It carries all kinds of diseases, paddle tennis or anything. But now I'm anxious to get back to starting to live a normal life again. But it's great. I play golf. I hate golf, but I play golf. Buddies. I run a lunch on Wednesdays where I have all of it's called a men's lunch. And, we have an admiral, we have CEOs, and we also have, cops and regular people. It's not like a fancy duty thing. It's a small little golf club, but there's a lot of nice guys and fun guys there. And one of my best friends who I played chess with all through COVID online, he and I against each other every week online, had a technology business that he sold to AT&T.
Oh, wow.
He did well, and he's better at chess than I am, but we have a great time. I think I'm about a third of the wins, maybe a little bit more, 40% of the wins. He's got 60, kind of thing. But we have a lot of fun. That's the kind of thing I do, and of course I have my daughter and her husband here, which is wonderful because I used to run IBM worldwide. She is a strategist for IBM, so it's
That's
wonderful.
amazing.
Come full circle. That's cool.
Even though, and she's on the phone down here, a couple of rooms away. So
Deja vu all over again, as the famous saying goes, right?
anyway,
Well, this is absolutely awesome, Steve. Great to see you. Thank you for doing this.
thanks for this opportunity. I mean, when you said they're going to come and get you, I said to myself, I better start thinking about what I'm going to say because I'm going to be in trouble.
That's great.
I reached out to Laura Greger actually to try and do this with you, but she couldn't make it happen. So we've got to get Laura. We have to go get. Maybe what we'll do is we'll get Julie and Laura together so they can talk
that'd
about
be good.
Steve,
Yeah.
That's terrific. And you ought to get Chris Needham too. I mean, he's in Massachusetts working for.
He was working at Fidelity. I don't know where.
Fidelity.
He is
That's
now.
right. That's what I thought. I don't know whether he's, but I see him on Facebook from time to time, or Instagram, one of them, and he seems to be having a really good life, and I'm really happy for him.
We're trying to get more of our female employees on, but everyone I've reached out to so far has told me to go away and never bother them again. So, if there are any watching out there that want to participate, I've been turned down and I'm feeling a bit sort of, let down a bit. Maybe I'm a stalker or something. Because
I may need to turn up my charm.
Yeah, I think you might
have to move in.
Yeah, I might have to move in.
If I think of any ladies, or if I talk to anybody, I can probably help you convince Laura.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I mean, if he could do it, she'll say to herself, "Oh, he could do it. I could do it."
Steve, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Hi to Martha. Hi to the kids. It was great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks.